everybody and welcome back to the channel. Now recently I made a video talking all about Helldivers 2 on the Steam Deck. Now on that video I had a lot of comments asking me what the performance was like as you went higher up in difficulties. And I've just recently unlocked difficulty level 6, which is called Extreme, whilst playing on PC, so I thought I would test it out on Steam Deck and give everybody a bit of an update what the performance is like at these higher difficulty missions. Keep watching for gameplay on a few different worlds, playing against both the Terminids and the Automatons. Now for these high difficulties I have changed the graphics and I'm using the preset low settings. Again with that scaling setting set to quality, even with the graphics set to low you can see some signs that the Steam Deck is struggling a little bit, although it's not all bad news. So the first mission is a difficulty 6 mission against the Terminids. This is on one of the smaller maps. The objective is just to kill 400 bugs. And this one did actually leave me feeling quite hopeful. You can see the FPS counter, it's not always sticking to 30, but it is somewhere between 25 and 30, sometimes a little bit over 30, which isn't too bad really, that's playable. And at points there's quite a lot of stuff happening on the screen at the same time, holding that frame rate. It does take a bit of a dip when the Bile Titans spawn, but things like big explosions don't seem to affect it too much. And generally I thought this mission went pretty well performance-wise. The next clip is again a bugs level 6 mission, but this time it's on a much bigger map and the objective is not focused so much in one place. People are roaming around a fair bit more. Again, it doesn't start off looking too bad. As you walk around the land you can see that the Steam Deck is reaching 40 FPS, even the giant 500 kilogram bombs don't affect things too much. When the bugs do spawn the frame rate drops, which is what I expected, and to start with though it didn't drop below 30 too much. At this point in the mission though we can see things start to dip a little bit. There seem to be more bugs than normal in a concentrated location. There's a Bile Titan, there's airstrikes being called in and an ion storm. You can see that it starts to drop to 25 frames. It doesn't last for a really long time though, and once that sort of concentrated action, especially the ion storm, dies down a bit, we go back to high 30s and around 40 again from time to time. Towards the end of the mission we start to get the same thing where the action becomes a lot more focused around the extraction point, but overall it seems that level 6 Terminids are actually pretty playable on Steam Deck, which I think is good news if you love fighting bugs or you love pretending you're playing Starship Trooper. It doesn't seem like you're going to have too much trouble level 6 bugs. Next we're off to fight the Automatons. Now this is Malevelon Creek. We recently had another mission to go here and bravely hold off the bots. This one is a bit of a different story straight away, so as soon as we drop down we're into a big fight and the action does get choppy pretty quickly. Sometimes there's not even a robot visible on the screen but the frame rate is in the 20s. You can have fights that are still in the 30s from time to time, but you're also just as likely to be playing below 30 frames per second. The final clip from this mission is right at the end, so at this point we've been running around for a while. I don't think we've played too well, we've allowed too many bots to drop and we've been completely swarmed. And this is the point really where you need as many frames as you can get in order to escape situations like this. But you can see low 20s is where it's hovering. At one point it was even sort of a little bit below that, 19 frames. It definitely felt like the Steam Deck struggled more against Automatons than Terminids, which was actually a surprise to me. I thought since usually there's more bugs swarming you, that would be the tougher missions to run. But that's not been my experience. Again with the bots, when you roamed around and there wasn't a lot of enemies, it wasn't too bad, but as soon as you started to get into those fights, you are very likely to drop below 30. Fighting bugs wasn't always above 30 frames, don't get me wrong, there were times when you dropped below that, but it felt like fighting the bots, it was much more likely that you would drop below 30 frames when a fight started. And finally the last gameplay footage that I've got is actually a difficulty 7 mission. Now I haven't unlocked this yet, but I was playing with randoms and I happened to get pulled into a group who launched a harder mission when I was recording, so I thought I would show you what it was like. You can see that the chaos has turned up another notch here. The amount of enemies on screen becomes even higher. At points there's so many chargers, Bile Titans spawn much more often. There's quite a lot of dropped frames here. It's very often in the low 20s as I fight, or it's probably more accurate to say as I run for my life, not really fight. Sometimes all I can see on the screen is one charger, but I think the sheer number of bugs that have been spawned nearby just tanks the frame rate. At one point the environment changes a bit and fire tornadoes start to spawn, which I thought would make things worse, but it was actually quite similar. You know, that didn't seem to affect things very much. I wasn't sure how the weather would affect it. Ion storms do seem to affect it, but in my experience now, fire tornadoes don't. I'm not really sure what the difference is there. Sadly, we couldn't complete this mission. My random teammates left the game one by one, and I did actually notice the frame rate improve just a little bit as that happened, but this doesn't bode well, I think, if you're hoping to push the Steam Deck to these higher difficulties. Well, there you have it. That was some Steam Deck gameplay showcasing performance on these higher difficulties against both bugs and against bots. Sadly, it seems pretty clear at this point that Steam Deck is struggling to keep up with these higher difficulties. I was nicely surprised that you could play level 6 missions against bugs, but, you know, level 6 missions against robots were a bit of a different story. And of course, that level 7 bug mission was pretty tricky to get through. It does seem like difficulty 6 might be a bit of a threshold at the moment for the Steam Deck, and anything higher than that, we're gonna unfortunately struggle performance-wise playing this game on a handheld. I hope you found this video useful. If you've tried to play any of these higher difficulty missions on Steam Deck, I'd love to know what your experience has been like. Has it been the same as mine, or have you been playing on some different worlds that haven't been quite as difficult to run? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.